All right, here we go. Suit of Cups. Now, the Suit of Cups has a reputation for being like the love suit, and it's all about love. It's not. It's so much more than that. It's about feelings. It's not about that one feeling. So it's not just about relationships. It's about experience. It's about emotions. It's about sensations. So it is a very difficult suit to describe because so much of what it depicts is ephemeral. It can't be seen because it's felt. When I think about water, I mean, and this is why water is so appropriate for the suit that represents emotions and sensations, because we really do have so little control over what we're feeling at any given moment. And I remember when I first started going to therapy many years ago, I used to say, God, I shouldn't feel that way. It's like, it's so dumb to feel that way. My therapist would always say, like, don't judge your feelings. They're telling you something about something. You didn't choose to feel the way you feel. You just feel the way you do. So like water, feelings kind of go where they want, and we don't have a lot of control over them. And in fact, when we try to work against them, they can destroy, And so I think about a line from the beginning of Memoirs of a Geisha, which now that I'm saying that out loud is probably like problematic all these years later, right? Written by a white guy. But there's a line at the beginning of the book where she's like, if water's path is blocked, it finds another way. It finds another path. And emotions do that. And I think about what water does. Like, water sustains life. We are mostly water. We are at the mercy of the moon. Like, we're pulled by the moon. And we flow and we ebb and we have up times and down times. We have tides. We also can be overwhelmed. We can be drowned by things. We can, suffocate in situations. You know what I mean? So water is water, and it does what water does. It can evaporate. Mixed with fire, it can turn to steam, and it can power an engine, or it can scald you. So when I think about the Suit of Cups, I'm thinking about water and what it does and the way that it connects to our sensations and our feelings. And that's sort of where I start. And that's how I think about the Suit of Cups. So it's not just about love and relationships. It can equally be about friendships. It can equally be about family and work. Again, each suit corresponds to every part of our life, but the way that the suit acts is kind of defined by the element in life. And so you can have cups moments at work as much as you can have it with your friends and your lovers, and it's just how the suit acts at work. How does water act in the office? So that's sort of how I approach things. Like the wands, the cups are very sensational, meaning that you feel them very deeply. And so the Ace of Cups is kind of where the Ace of Wands is kind of the spark of desire. The Ace of Cups is the spark of feeling, whatever that feeling is. And it's going to take other cards to tell you what they are. It can be good, it can be bad, but it's that thing of like, oh, I'm starting to feel this way. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm starting to feel depressed. Oh, I'm starting to feel love. Oh, I'm starting to feel whatever. Oh, I'm starting to get this sensation. There's this tingle. So that's what the ace does. It's the seed of feeling. It's the impulse of feeling. It is the beginning of feeling something. The Two of Cups, which the Golden Dawn called the Lord of Love. Sounds like a really bad romance novel, doesn't it? Is a card that I think traditionally people may think about it as love and relationships and attraction. And there's attraction is part of two, right? So yes, it's a mutual feeling or a repulsion feeling, because twos go both ways. And again, it's going to take other cards to tell you, but twos are like a magnet. They attract and repel. And so it can be a feeling that's attractive, or it can be a feeling of repulsion, and it's shared, is sort of how the two works. And again, it can be love, but it can be hate, it can be depression, it can be anything. It's a mutual sensation. It's probably most of the time very positive. But it could, again, it could in the right context. I mean, like, you both have a mutual dislike for each other. If you get that with, I don't know, the 10 of Swords, say, you know what I mean? Like, or the 5 of Swords. There could be like the beginning of the feeling of like really not liking you, for example. And I think Pamela Coleman Smith picture is pretty, it definitely is sort of this mutual pull to each other. And I think that is appropriate. And I'll say, I didn't say this in any other video, like the elemental and numerological association of the cards came after the Golden Dawn. So like the way that I read is not traditional at all, but it's the way that I read. And so the Golden Dawn titles came before the combination of element and number. And in fact, Waite doesn't really mention the elements at all in his book. He, like, in terms of they don't seem to have any import beyond the ace. Each ace is the root of the power of fire or water or whatever. But the only time Waite really mentions the elements is in connection to the aces. And I went back in Mathers, who's kind of the godfather of the Golden Dawn, the founder of it, doesn't really mention them either. And he was the one who, I don't know if he made up the esoteric titles or where he found them, but the first time that I can find them anywhere is in his book T. So the Three of Cups, the Golden Dawn called the Lord of Abundance. And I think, again, that tracks, right? Because threes are growth and expansion. They are the result of something. And so the result is, abundant. It's an abundance of feelings. There's the friendship aspect of that card because of the way it's pictured. And I think that that's certainly valid, but they're celebrating abundant emotion, and there's an openness to feeling with the three because there's like, I'm not afraid. I'm willing to let the feelings expand. I have come to terms with, in the ace, I sort of thought, I kind of feel this way. And in the two, it's like, I definitely feel this way. And in the three, it's like, I'm open to feeling this way and I will let it flow abundantly. And so I think that that's kind of how I look at that. It's and sometimes in readings, it can also kind of represent just, again, a growing pull towards something, towards a sensation, towards a feeling, because threes grow. The Four of Cups, the Golden Dawn called the Lord of Blended Pleasure, another one of their famously nebulous titles. Again, if you watch the Wands video, I talked about how fours are stable. And so this is a card where the traditional associations with it have to do with like apathy, boredom. And I think there's some validity to that because stabilized emotions can get dull. You can get into a rut. So that's one way of looking at it. But it's not only that. For folks like me who are super anxious all the time, like having a stable day, having a Four of Cups day is a really good thing. It's like I have a solid base to stand on. And so, yes, it can also be boredom because there's that part of four that's kind of stick in the mud, kind of conservative. There's also a good point to that where it's like, okay, I'm standing on solid ground right now. I feel stable. The Five of Cups, the Golden Dawn, called the Lord of Loss and Pleasure. And I don't have much to say about that. I think that Pamela Coleman Smith sort of gave us that picture. The way that I read that card, again, fives disrupt. It's disruptive, and so they're shaking your feelings up. They're shaking your emotions up. You're like, oh my god, I went from the stability of the four to like the holy shit of the five. Like, oh, I thought I was doing okay. I thought I knew what I was feeling. Now I don't know what I'm feeling, or what I thought I was feeling, I'm not feeling. Like, oh shit. And again, in good and bad ways. So that's how I think about it. When I reconcile it with the image, it's not as easy because the image is very specifically sad. It is not a neutral image necessarily, and you can feel kind of overwhelmed and sad and shaken when you do find yourself disrupted in that way. The Six of Cups to me is kind of the loveliest of the cards in the minors. They call the Nine of Wands, the Nine of Cups, the wish card. I really don't know why, but feeling good is sort of what the Six of Cups is all about. Now they called it the Lord of Pleasure. So there you go. But six, again, if you watch the Wands video, already is beautiful. It's good. Six is just a lovely balanced, rebalancing after chaos. And so you're feeling good in the Six of Cups. You're feeling balanced. And really, it's rarely a negative card for me. There have been situations where I have found that the Six of Cups can make you feel so good that you actually are vain. So you become so caught up in the vanity or so caught up in the pleasure that you actually cut out real life. And so that's one way that the Six of Wands shows up that way. And this is a really sweet image. I mean, there's all these associations with nostalgia, and that can make you feel good, you know. So I don't stress too much about that image. The Seven of Cups was the Lord of illusionary success. And I'm having it's the famous. But again, for me, that image actually really works with the way I read, because sevens are introspection. And so at the seven, after all of the things you've been through so far, you return to the self and you say, what do I really feel? And that's not easy, because again, it's ephemeral. Feelings, you can feel a lot about something. And for me, the way that card depicts the person looking up at the clouds with all the stuff in it, like, it's just sort of what that feels like, of returning to the self and trying to figure out what you feel. The Eight of Cups for the Golden Dawn was called Lord of Abandoned Success. And I think that's interesting. And it, I think Pamela Coleman Smith did a beautiful job drawing that, the sort of like cups and you're leaving them behind. And eights for me, again, represent the work that goes into anything. And so when the Eight of Cups shows up, it's like putting the investment in whatever sensation or feeling you're experiencing. It's like, in order to either move forward from this or to sustain it, there's a certain amount of labor that needs to happen. That's how I read the Eight. And again, sometimes it's a beautiful image, and sometimes it just does mean moving on. And sometimes that's the labor that's required. So again, it all comes down to context for me. It's just really so important. But again, this is, like I said in the Trumps video, this is where I start usually. The Nine of Cups, which is sometimes called the Wish card. The first time I can see that called that is in Eden Grey. I've never seen it anywhere earlier than that. But the Golden Dawn called it the Lord of Material Happiness. And it, the card definitely sort of is someone who has material success. They've got a table full of cups and they look happy and sated. Nines are that, it's not done yet. Like, I have to, it's like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. And so oftentimes that card shows up for me in readings where, like, people have a lot of work to do in a relationship and it's not going to be easy. That's sort of how that will work often. Or their feelings are just like draining them. That's kind of how I read it. And the picture on the card really doesn't correspond to that in any way for me. And again, it's just one of the weird quirks about the way I read. And when I read with Rider-Waite-Smith, that's just a thing I have to contend with. But the images are secondary to me. And the context is always first. So the system of the element and the number, or the picture or a keyword if there is one, like, all of that comes after I know what the context is of the question and the other cards. And then finally, the Ten of Cups is the Lord of Perfected Success. And the Ten of Cups for me is that's the Golden Dawn title. It's you've done it. Like, you've done the work and it's over. It's finished. And it's sometimes good and sometimes bad. I mean, there have been times, because tens represent the completion of something, the completion of a cycle. There have been times when that beautiful, happy family in a reading, to me, has said, this relationship is done, because you have run the course of it. And so that's an interesting thing about being a reader with the Rider-Waite-Smith cards the way I read, because the Ten of Cups is the completion of a feeling. It's the completion of a sensation. And so in a relationship reading, it could mean that the feelings are gone, And it's an interesting dichotomy for me when I pull that card and everyone's like, look how happy everyone is. And I'm like, look how happy everyone was. But again, this is my system. This is how I've gotten there. And it works for me. And that's what I'm sharing with you because you asked me to. So that's how I read the 10. Now, it can be a good thing. It can be like, you did it. You got there. But it can also be like, you did it and it's over. It's done. So I would always, if the 10 of Cups comes up in a relationship reading, I will often always look to see what the rest of I always look to see what the rest of the cards are telling me, though. But it might, in a relationship reading, I would wonder whether the relationship was winding up, was winding down. So, like I said in the Wands video, I did do a whole video on the courts, and I'm not going to talk about them too much, but the way that I do work with them is literally the each court card has a thing. Student is the page, the knight is a hunter, the queen is a facilitator, and the king is a embodiment. And it's definitely more nuanced than that in a reading, but that's just sort of where I start. And so the page is discovering feeling, is discovering sensation. It's almost like a prepubescent moment emotionally. The hunter, the Knight of Cups is your he's your romance. He's your white knight. He's going out in search of feeling and sensation and romance. The queen is making it happen. You know what I mean? She's working on the relationship, or she's a matchmaker, or And then the king is like, I just feel things. I've gotten to the point where he's been in therapy for 20 years and he gets it. So those are my ruminations today on the Suit of Cups. And so if you have not seen the Wands video, I'll try to remember to link it below. And if not, you can just search my channel. And we'll do Swords next and then Pentacles. So again, I hope this was good. Stay good. Be well.